to Print is Back, the creative print-related podcast. I'm Jacques Michels.
And I'm Andreas Weber.
We are your hosts. Welcome.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Print is Back podcast. And today we are recording from the Print Island recording studios, and very welcome to everybody. So yes, Eddie Hagen is our man here in the conversation, and Eddie is a Belgian print industry analyst. He's kind of an industry provocateur, known for his critical coverings of Landa's digital printing technology and the market's impact that it has or had, and for challenging hype-driven narratives, exposing flaws in industry standards, for example, such as the Pantone color guides. And where as a result of this, he also created the free Better Brand Color Guide framework. But we're here this morning, actually, to talk about the Landa story. And before we head off, just a quick heads up, because everything we say here is based on our understanding and opinions at this time of recording. And we're not claiming to be perfect. We're definitely not thinking that we know everything about the story. And we're certainly not giving any legal advice. If anything turns out to be inaccurate or incomplete, we're not liable. This is just a conversation between us and not a board, nor a courtroom for that matter. So with that clarified, guys, let's crack on. Good day, gentlemen. Good day, Andreas.
Hi, good morning. And thank you, Jacques, for your nice introduction. And welcome, Eddie. I'm not sure if we met in person before. Could you remember if we met ever? I don't think so.
No, just online.
Yeah.
Like
so LinkedIn brought us together. And
Yes.
it was related to the discussion surrounding Benny Landa and the latest development with Landa Digital Printing, which went out of money, and now they have a new owner since exactly 8 days. We have that announcement from the law court, and I think it's very important to discuss about it, not to investigate and to try to find all those secrets, because this will show up in the very next months and years. But I think it's very important to understand why innovation possibilities in print are so complex. Because normally what I've learned when I started 50 years ago, it was so easy in a certain rhythm. You got new equipment, and later on you got new software in a faster speed. And things were very linear. Those times have gone. Do you think so as well, Eddie?
No, not really. It's still the same rhythm, only the rhythm base of that has changed. It's much faster, but you still have the same series of announcements. And I've written a nice article about that in 2020. What you will see in Düsseldorf in Drupa 2020. And this covers the different phases, because this is what many people do not seem to grab or understand. And the Landa story, I use that as a use case because this is the perfect story. It all starts with a concept. And Landa, when they launched Landa Digital Printing, Drupa 2012, it was just concepts, nothing more. But they started to sell it. And then after a concept, you have a prototype. That was 2016. And you get beta sites, which I was guessing we would see it in Drupa 2020, but something happened and we didn't go to Drupa. And then eventually you get productive machines. So the products, I should say.
Okay, that's good to know, because what I was thinking about, I was reflecting going back in the history of printing for 200 years. I had I did some research, and I was refreshing my memory regarding inventors like Alois Senefelder, who invented the chemical printing process, which is still very valid, and also photolithography is used in the IT business still today to create chips. And we have Georg Meisenbach, Ottmar Mergenthaler, Chester Carlson, and all those people. My point is, all those were interested to enhance the possibilities of print, not to substitute something. And When I go back to Benny Landa, he started in 1993 in announcing that he wants to substitute offset printing. So his first message was not, I want to contribute to digital printing, I want to substitute offset. And so he tried with indigo and later on with under nanographic. And this is, for me, a totally different approach.
Yes, but it's part marketing. It's a large part marketing. He was, by the way, not the only one. And I think Jacques may still remember that when Xerox launched one of their Docutechs, I think it was, they had an advertising in Graphisch Nieuws, Nouvelle Graphique, the trade journal in Belgium. And they had an image of an Heidelberg offset press with a lot of dust on it or a cover on it. And we're going to replace it. And the local Heidelberg distributor made a lawsuit of that. So also Xerox was claiming we're going to replace offset. So it's largely marketing. And this is, in my opinion, also a little bit the problem with not only with Landa, but in the early days also with others in digital printing. That comparison with offset, and we are going to replace offset, and we are better than offset, or at least equal as offset. That's not a good value proposition, because you immediately link yourself to that other technology that is already very mature, that's in the market. Everybody knows it. Everybody can control it. You should do it in a different way. And I have an example of that. I forgot the year. I think it was 2012. Somebody from a company, let's say it's a vendor, showed me something privately, and they said, well, this technology we can compete with for certain things with offset printing, a larger format. Going to show that at our booth at Drupa. And I said, don't compare it with offset. Do not do it. Just say, we have this technology on this format, this level of output, but do not compare it with offset, because that will lead people to make a very tough comparison of your technology with offset. So when I was at Drupa, I met that guy, and he said, Eddie, thank you for your tip. We didn't mention offset, but we sold at least X amount of devices already to printers, because they said, wow, this quality, this is good enough for me. So the value proposition was different. People were discovering themselves, printers were discovering themselves that this would fit their business. And it was not, this is exactly the same as offset or the same quality. So this is something that in my opinion has been wrong all along, with almost a fetish with comparing their own technology with offset printing.
Well, that leads me to an interesting point. I think, as we now just did, was a little historic, let's say, positioning of the Landa proposition in time. Obviously, these last months, weeks, there's been a lot of sharing of ideas, of opinions online, where it might be. We have our colleagues, Morten from Inkish, we have Mickey, we have Eddie, ourselves. So everybody kind of has his own opinions, but I think you struck the right note there, Eddie. I think we have to be clear, everybody, and we're not going to dive too much into the technicality of everything. But I think, as you say, there's been a lot of marketing, which is necessary to put a startup in the market. But I think that what they lost out of sight, just to give you my opinion, and maybe I can ask your opinion on that as well. I think since 2012 or 16, whatever, when it was really still a startup with a lot of secrecy and a lot of show, and you had to sign NDAs all over the place, and you had to pay up front just to sign on a contract to be able to secure a machine and so forth. I think since then, obviously, we're 15 years on, and also the narrative about sustainability, about all the other elements that are relevant today in the market for a printer to make a decision to buy some kind of a piece of technology or machinery has completely changed. And that's even way beyond the fact, do you do the same speeds? Is it like a hybrid technology? Is it whatever it might be, all the above. But I think the decisions that are necessary nowadays to make the right decision when you make a big investment are completely different. And that was something they could not foresee back in the day, but which is reality today. Is it going to be, let's say, sustainable and valid for the next 5 to 7 years? But that's the time you need to run the machine without any problems, even without going into all the technical difficulties they have. Eddie, what is your opinion about that?
The purchasing process, investment process has certainly evolved significantly. And in the old days, when we were younger, I always used to joke that some printers bought printing presses the way that I bought my jeans. They went to the same shop and they said, I want a new version of this because my old one is not functioning anymore. But this has changed significantly. And this is probably also due to the change in management of printing companies. In the old days, when we were young, many printers were educated as printers. And the printing company grew and they became manager, CEO, whatever. But these days we have people running printing companies with master degrees, MBAs, not necessarily with a printing education. And that's a very big difference, and difference for the better in the main part, because printing companies are now run as a business like any other business. And the CEO, the CFO, they look at the long-term perspectives and they look at the productivity, they look at efficiency, stuff like that, because they know what comes out of that printing press. I have to be able to sell that, and it has to produce as much sellable product as possible.
Mm.
And of course, due to all kinds of regulations and customers nagging about it, also environment becomes, sustainability becomes more and more important. I totally agree with that. So we see in a lot of ways the narrative being changed a little bit. And for instance, also on the color issue, there is some change visible, that people are not as picky anymore as they used to be, because it used to be even ridiculous. The level of color quality that they demanded for a single-use package that you throw away almost immediately, and asking delta E of 1 or 2 for brand color reproduction. I'm sorry, but this you can't mix that or bring it into the same level as sustainability. If you want that kind of color quality, that will be less sustainable because you need more make ready, more setup waste. So it just doesn't make any sense.
Eddie and Andreas, I mean, as you just explained, I think you're absolutely right about the management of the new groups, the new printing, because there's been so much going forward, and like you said, groups are forming, consolidation and so forth. So the management and decision taking is being done on a different level. Andreas, you probably also can agree on the fact that before, and I speak 10, 15 years, of course, there were groups and bigger, let's say, bigger organizations that have other management structures. But can we agree on the fact that back in the day, when Landa was really into the marketing, the decision makers, they were more like printers, hands-on, rather than financial people, I think, that they took decisions more from the gut, and they were in love. They were brought in love with the Landa magic, I would say. And from talking back in the day, and Eddie knows this as well, you've talked to a lot of people, well, a lot. There aren't that lot that have Landa presses, about 50. And then again, with NDAs on their necks. But if you kind of hear the story, it's also kind of story of the love story, that they fell in love with the possibilities they were promised, which now at some parts didn't deliver. So Andreas, is that also something that you see as well? Is that also one of the problems, that they cannot at this point in time persuade the management to sign off on an investment?
Yeah. I think where Jacques, what you mentioned in right at the beginning, it's magic, and this is exactly what Steve Jobs also promised when he came back to Apple, and Apple was in trouble. It was exactly the time around when Benny Landa showed up as well. So that means the whole business from computing and publishing and printing was in a big transformation. Everything changed dramatically. And therefore, I can imagine, and this is my observation, that many printers have been happy to see a single person who said, "This is my vision, please follow me," because nobody else did that at that time. All the others, Heidelberg and Manroland and Koenig and Bauer as well, they were really in trouble and they had to reorganize their business. They want, on one hand side, they want to have growth. On the other hand, they have to cover increasing costs. And there was nobody the PSPs could identify with, beside Benny Landa. I know him from the very beginning when he was starting Indigo at IPEX in '93. I think I'm in the minority of people who know him for such a long time constantly. I would not say I'm a good friend, but I had so many meetings with him and very intimate meetings. HP organized a farewell gala dinner for him in Haifa in Israel. So I have all those different approaches to him, and I really like him. But there was a certain point where I become skeptical, and in the current discussion, that's not people are not aware of that, because Eddie mentioned that in 2012, Landa started with presenting his nanographic concept. And at that time, at that Drupa, he made alliances also with Heidelberger Druckmaschinen. And I talked to Bernhard Schreier, the CEO at that time. And after a really long period, several months, Heidelberg decided to give up that cooperationship because they said the nanographic printing technology was not feasible from their perspective. And I know the guy who was leading the team doing all the research work and the meetings in Israel. And at that point, Heidelberg said, no, that never can happen. And so they had their exit and they started to develop their own inkjet technology with Fuji. So, and that was for me an indicator, something is not that easy with that. And then Landa had to re-engineer his whole concept because the machine he presented in 2012, it looked like a big iPhone, a giant iPhone with a printing engine in the background. This kind of machine concept was not made for getting production done. So printers and operators had to tell him that. And all these little details made me skeptical. And then it took so much time. And nevertheless, he was still a very prominent figure who was leading the innovation path and who was talking about print and print technology in a very smart and, I would say, sexy way. And he was the only one doing that. It's a lot of psychology, yeah, and for sure it's magic, but at every point, and this is what Steve Jobs realized in a perfect way, he promised something as magic, but he delivered exactly. And very reliable communication, which was also spectacular, but he could deliver. And this what Benny Landa was not able to do so far. When I got it right, the private equity company, FIMI, they had in the contract that he will never be part of the Landa Digital Printing Group again.
Oh, that's an interesting point you make, and that brings us back, Eddie, to today, the events of last week that you also shared your opinions on online and on LinkedIn. Yeah, like you say, Andreas. So I guess Benny is unfortunately out of the door at this point. How do you personally, Eddie, see this venture or adventure for Landa taking form? Because you have that waterfall, let's say, structure financially and so forth. How do you personally see this coming about? Is there an end to the story?
There will eventually be an end. Whether it will be a fortunate event or not, end or not, that will be the big question. To start with the decision of the court, I understand the decision of the court that they They got one offer and they accepted that one offer because it was some money, and otherwise everything had to be liquidated, meaning that nobody would get any extra money left, and not even the people working with Landa Digital Printing. Now, that being said, we all know that it's made public that the previous, I should say, shareholders, their assessment was that that the company needed $300 million extra and 5 years to get to break even. This was in a scenario where nothing had happened. Now they have 80 million with some money that they have to pay their partners, their employees. So how can they do what they have to do with that limited amount of money? Especially since the technology is still not okay. And I didn't know the anecdote that Andreas told about Heidelberg. I didn't know that, but I know from a different source, somebody else who tried the same thing. And they said after X amount of time, we stopped because it was too difficult. And this is the strange story, or the strange thing about both Landa stories, both Indigo and Landa Digital Printing. He kept doing the same thing for many, many, many years, while all the others, and I've documented that in one of my recent articles, all the others pivoted when it seemed too difficult. They took another route, and they succeeded with another route.
Yeah.
But Landa, with Indigo, this was also a story of more than a decade before that he came to market. And what many people seem to forget is that it's only thanks to HP that the Indigo became a productive press. And this is where my skepticism came from. An R&D manager from HP Barcelona told me once, a few years after the acquisition of Indigo by HP, that they were not amused when they for the first time saw the insides of an Indigo press. This was literally his words. We were not amused. And they had to redesign everything to make it viable. And then the second point where I became critical was the launch at Drupa 2012, when touchscreens were changing before they were touched. Those touchscreens were just monitors in a video.
Yeah.
So, and now that was 2012. Now we're 2025, so more than a decade later. And by the way, development of nanography started in 2002. So we're over 2 decades later. And the issues that I personally saw in 2016, registration issues, we still have registration issues. I just can't believe it. This is something that every other inkjet press developer has solved already ages ago. And Landa seems that they can't solve it. Why is that? They had 500 people or 600 people. What were they doing? If they can't solve that simple thing, this either means that they're doing something completely different, or that they can't control every of their variables. And as long as they don't solve those basic issues, I'm sorry, it will not be a success.
Yeah, and that's, as you mentioned just before as well, that's obviously what everybody is now very interestingly following up on. As you said, like this deal that it's not a deal, it's like a court ruling that came out of it with the 80 million now on the table, such a restricted amount of money. How are they going to turn it around? And that brings me to the next point of, let's say, internet ideas and opinions. Do you think it could be like a financial gamble from that new investor? Or do you think they really want to get the technology on track and in the print shops? Obviously, it's personal opinions. That's what I said at the beginning, but it seems a long shot.
I have no idea, and I would love to know.
That's a good answer. That's a good answer.
Me too. I think what we have to differentiate is we have this visionary and charismatic person, Benny Landa, who is a great inventor. He had hundreds of patents and so he was an enabler. And also he enabled HP after they redesigned everything, the ink, the machine design, and he was also an enabler for HP to create a multi-billion-dollar business and also for HP customers. This is fantastic. But I think he was good for running a laboratory but not bringing things down to the normal world. And therefore, I think his biggest mistake was that he didn't have a good management for Landa Printing Group. When I get back to 24, what they announced was smart, but it was also a business concept. So they have a technology concept, which was not ready, and they designed a business plan, and they showed, oh, now we grow. Yeah, but they didn't grow. It was a speculation, and it was a wish to grow. And I think this is interesting for FIMI. If you have a company and you don't understand the technology and how it works that well, you look after how are the business processes, and it's easy to optimize them because it was so bad. And therefore, I think they signed in, and it's not a big amount of money for those companies. So I think they are really sure when they optimize the business management of the company and the strategy of the company, they can win. But the bottleneck is really, does this technology become ever reliable? So could it be? And therefore, I'm not a technician. I'm observing what people like you and like Rainer Wagner, other experts, when they look with a deep technical understanding, even like the Heidelberg people did 13 years ago, there must be something which can't work. And I don't know how to solve it and if it's possible to solve it. That's the bottleneck.
Well, I think, Andreas, we will soon find out because, like it's in the open discussion now online, and Eddie is also, like us, following with hawk's eyes on what is developing. But I think it's fair to say that with that, let's say, that one concrete offer that was put in, there's a lot of doubt, at the least, let's say, in people's heads, if this technology is even viable in the long run.
Yeah, because there is an important point. There was only one offer, and it was not from a vendor from the printing industry. HP looked at it, Agfa looked at it, Koenig & Bauer looked at it, I believe. Fuji looked at it. They all had the details, both on the business side and on the technical side, from that data room, and they all said no.
And Komori, as a manufacturing partner, so to say, they also licensed the nanographic printing technology, and they stopped their activities around that a couple of years ago.
Yeah, but one would expect maybe people knowing a little bit into consolidation or acquisitions and so forth. One could think that Komori, being part in the equation of the creditors, they would maybe ask some exchange of some sort to recuperate some of their.
If it would be perfect technology, they would have been the first one.
Yes, that's my opinion as well. So, yeah, very interesting. It's not the last that has been said about it, I think, and it's striking, Eddie, like you point out correctly, that it's actually a private equity group that jumps in. And when private equity groups come in somewhere, it's probably most of the times not for the love of technology or the love of, I don't know, the name that they come in. And also the waterfall structure or the waterfall clause, and they absolutely are entitled to do so. But it's all about numbers and revenue and profit in the end of the day, which makes for a good company to do so. So I think the last thing absolutely hasn't been said about Landa. We haven't spoken yet about the customers of Landa who have printing presses on site that have to be kept operational. It's going to take too long now to go into this details. Maybe if some people out there who are listening, watching our episode and have some interesting insights, please leave a comment in the section. And yeah, I think we will stop here for this episode. There will be a follow-up with Eddie as well. because the situation will evolve over time and probably more quickly than we think. And we'll have another opportunity to give our own insights about what is and has happened when we meet again. So for now, Eddie, thank you very much for coming on and giving us your insights, and looking forward for the follow-up. Andreas, thank you so much as well. So gentlemen, thank you, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
We keep the conversation going on. Bye-bye, gentlemen.
Yes, bye.